Homage to Buddha Shakyamuni, homage to Manjushri, homage to all the lineage masters. Profound and subtle dharma is rarely encountered in eons. Now we can follow it. May we realize the Tathagata's meaning. To liberate all sentient beings, please generate unsurpassed bodhicitta.
Now we will discuss the Dzogchen teachings. Wait, it is not Dzogchen. What are we discussing? We are studying the essence of clear light, a commentary on the overview of the Guhyagarbha Tantra. We are currently in the 5th chapter, the chapter on empowerment. This chapter is not very long. Among all the chapters of the Guhyagarbha Tantra, the earlier sections on the view are the most extensive. Since the view is so crucial, Mipham Rinpoche wrote extensively on it. The next chapter, which we will cover in the next session, is the chapter on Samaya. The chapter on Samaya is also quite lengthy. In fact, it likely contains the most content of all. These two chapters are considered the most substantial parts of the Guhyagarbha Tantra. The chapter on empowerment is relatively brief, and we already started it yesterday. To receive an empowerment, one must possess 2 root causes and 4 contributing circumstances. As we discussed, an empowerment is only truly received when these causes and circumstances are fully present. We have already covered the 2 root causes. The first root cause concerns the requirements for the disciple. As a disciple, one must be a person possessing the 6 elements, complete with the channels, winds, essences, and consciousness. As for the guru, one aspect involves the qualities the guru themselves must embody during the empowerment process. All the sacred substances and symbolic objects must be fully present and complete. However, merely having these objects is not enough. The guru must have a profound view, realization, and practice to provide the necessary seal, blessing, and consecration. This is very difficult to achieve. Therefore, not just anyone is qualified to bestow empowerments. If anyone could do it, then empowerment would seem like something very simple. The physical rituals are actually quite simple. They are not as complex as dancing, singing, or mastering a difficult computer program. Compared to those tasks, bestowing an empowerment is such that if someone is relatively intelligent, they could probably learn the external procedures in just a couple of hours of training. However, the primary condition for a guru to bestow a secret mantra empowerment is that they must personally possess an insightful realization and view that truly penetrates the secret mantra teachings. But this is exactly what is most often lacking. Yesterday we discussed the 2 root causes, one relating to the guru and one relating to the disciple. It is essential to understand these principles clearly. Now let's discuss the 4 contributing circumstances. Empowerment requires the gathering of these 4 contributing circumstances. Among these 4, we will first look at the circumstance of the cause. The 4 contributing circumstances are first the circumstance of the cause, which means a disciple with faith and prajna suitable for receiving empowerment. The first of the 4 circumstances is called the circumstance of the cause. This circumstance must be fully present. But what does it actually mean? It means the disciple must be a suitable vessel. Essentially, as a disciple, one must possess unwavering faith in both the secret mantra and in the guru. This kind of faith should not be superficial, accidental, or based on a momentary impulse or fleeting emotion. It has to be something far more stable and deeply rooted. Furthermore, for a disciple to receive empowerment, they should at least possess the wisdom to grasp the principle of the non-duality of evenness and purity. Without this foundation of understanding, there's a real risk that one might lose heart and abandon the path after only a few days. Moreover, some people have no idea about the actual content, function, or merits of an empowerment. They don't know the faults of not receiving it, its various classifications, or its actual essence. They are completely in the dark and lack any discernment. They simply follow the crowd and go whenever others are going. Such people might view empowerment as some kind of qigong or supernatural power. If they see it as just some extraordinary worldly phenomenon, then they lack the necessary wisdom. It's simply not reasonable to seek it so blindly. So when we look at the strict requirements for a disciple, both wisdom and faith must be very stable. Of course, many people seeking empowerment might possess a superficial level of faith and wisdom. They might try to use a bit of cleverness to sneak into an empowerment or obtain the teachings illicitly. Even when they are not qualified to receive it, they still try to attend. While this happens, it cannot be called true wisdom. The circumstance of the cause means possessing genuine wisdom and faith. That was the first of the 4 circumstances. The second one is the dominant circumstance. The circumstance of the master, meaning one who has attained the path of mantra's potential and has become an authentic Vajra master capable of blessing disciples' minds through empowerment. This is the dominant circumstance. The dominant circumstance primarily refers to the qualities that must be present within the guru's mind streams. So, what kind of conditions must the guru meet? First, they must have attained the necessary potential within the secret mantra path. To bestow an empowerment, you must have the actual capacity to do so. Otherwise, if you have no realization or power, you cannot truly give it. For example, a master who grants the pratimoksha vows must possess the corresponding precepts and view. Similarly, a master who transmits the bodhisattva vows must have bodhicitta in their own mind stream. They must hold the bodhisattva vows themselves. Otherwise, they cannot transmit them to others. The very same logic applies to secret mantra empowerments. As a guru, on one hand, they must at least have realized the view of the evenness and purity of all phenomena. In terms of practice, they should have experience in both the generation and completion stages. Moreover, they must have attained a certain level of mastery over the view, meditation, conduct, and result of the secret mantra. Regarding those who bestow empowerments, certainly Buddhas can do so. Bodhisattvas can bestow them, and even ordinary beings can bestow them. Is every person who gives an empowerment a bodhisattva? Not necessarily. The Vajrayana teachings explain that even ordinary beings can confer empowerments, provided they meet certain requirements. But for an ordinary person, they must still possess the specific qualifications of the secret mantra. At the very least, they must meet the criteria of an authentic Vajra master. Furthermore, they must be capable of blessing the mind streams of their disciples. Within their own mind stream, there must be at least the blessing of the lineage gurus, the blessing of the sublime view of the secret mantra, and the blessing of the realizations that they have personally attained. Only if you possess this blessing yourself can you confer it upon the mind streams of others. If you have no blessing and are just a completely ordinary person, you cannot do it. It is like being a teacher in the secular world. A teacher must be able to influence and empower their students through their own knowledge. Only then are they considered a proper teacher. A secret mantra empowerment guru truly needs to have such capacity as well. I've often thought about my own teacher, His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche. During an empowerment, his presence would naturally lead many disciples into another realm entirely. Faith would arise spontaneously in their hearts. They would naturally experience incredible states of the secret mantra. This does indeed happen. Therefore, it is essential that an empowerment guru possesses these specific qualifications. This is the necessary circumstance regarding the Vajra masters. Some masters of secret mantra are considered authentic merely in name, possessing only nominal qualifications. In fact, to be honest, some might not even possess these qualities in a nominal sense. This is called the dominant circumstance, the second of the contributing circumstances. What is the third circumstance called? It is the visual circumstance. What is the visual circumstance? The visual circumstance meaning the substances, mantra and samadhi possessing authentic potential. As mentioned earlier, this circumstance applies to both the disciple and the guru. Specifically, it involves substances that possess an actual function or spiritual potential. These are the items used in empowerment, such as the treasure vase, crystal glass, and nectar. All of these must perform their intended function. What does it mean for them to perform a function? That is to say, during the empowerment, the guru must be able to visualize these items properly to activate them. For instance, in the Guhyagarbha Tantra, we discussed the 10 beneficing empowerments yesterday. In these 10 empowerments, it's truly important to visualize the 5 Buddha families. For example, the head ornament and jewel are visualized as Ratnasambhava Buddha. The crown is visualized as Amitabha Buddha. The armor is visualized as Amoghasiddhi Buddha. The victory banner and parasol are visualized as Akshobhya Buddha, and so on. Even the treasure vase itself is visualized as the 5 Buddha families. So the guru must transform these ritual objects through visualization. It is important to understand that a ritual object like a mala is not just a tool used to simply touch your head. If a guru treats the process as a mere physical gesture by just touching you with the mala, and the disciple also thinks, oh, this is just an ordinary mala, then such a simplified approach to visualization and practice is actually incorrect. All the sacred substances in an empowerment must be made functional through the power of realization. Furthermore, as a guru, they must be able to recite every single mantra and ritual liturgy correctly and fluently. They must not only recite them, but also maintain the corresponding visualizations. The ritual contains many visualization methods related to the generation stage. The guru must shift visualizations fluidly, first taking refuge for oneself and others, next arousing bodhicitta, and following that, they must visualize the disciple as the yidam and so forth. Performing these many visualizations requires the guru to possess stable samadhi. They need the capacity to chant and recite effectively. It is not just about the recitation. Their samadhi must stay perfectly aligned with the recitation. The visual circumstance works the same way for the disciple. The disciple also needs to rely on objects that have been blessed and consecrated. It is best to use sacred items handled by masters with great blessing, such as sacred items once used by the lineage gurus themselves. These are the ideal supports to bestow empowerment or blessings. When the guru guides you to visualize refuge, try to truly feel that intention to take refuge. When you are asked to visualize yourself as Guru Rinpoche, you really inhabit that visualization of yourself as the guru. When light radiates to invite the yidam from the pure realms, you must follow that process mentally. When samadhi, mantras, and these interdependent conditions all come together, then the empowerment will be received naturally when the causes and conditions meet. But if these conditions do not come together, whether the lack is on the part of the guru, on the part of the disciple, or even if the ritual objects are not properly prepared, then the empowerment is merely a formality. In reality, the essence has not been received. In this regard, it is quite different from the Pratimoksha vows. In the Pratimoksha teachings, according to the Vinaya rules, even if the preceptor or the Acharya does not personally possess precepts, there are certain cases within the ritual, specifically in the Sarvastivada school, where it is stated that the candidate will still receive the essence of the vows as long as the person has no regrets and truly feels that they have received the vows before that particular Acharya. The disciple still receives the vows, even if the teacher's own precepts are not pure. Such situations do indeed exist in that context. However, when we look at secret mantra, the situation is almost the opposite. If the necessary qualifications of the guru are missing, or the requirements of the disciple are not met, then the empowerment cannot truly be received. Nowadays, there are many people bestowing empowerments and many seeking them. But let's be honest, we all have our doubts from time to time, whether it's about ourselves or others. Perhaps we might feel hindered by our own preconceptions or heavy doubts. Many people attend these empowerments, but both the givers and receivers may wonder, do I truly have the qualifications? People often can't help but wonder. So many seek empowerment, but for those who attend, if they just sit in the row during the empowerment without any focus or visualization, can they truly receive it by just sitting there? It's not like giving transmission, where the focus is on the lineage of sound. In that case, as long as the sound reaches your ears, the transmission is received. But the empowerment is different. One must actively follow along with the corresponding samadhi and capacity. These qualities must be present. Therefore, this is what we call the visual circumstance. The immediately preceding circumstance, meaning the initial stages of the empowerment and ritual that must precede the stages that follow. The last circumstance is called the immediately preceding circumstance. In the sequence of various empowerments, the preceding stages serve as the cause, and the subsequent stages as the result. For instance, if we have the vase empowerment first, followed by the secret and wisdom empowerments, then the vase empowerment acts as the cause for the secret empowerment. If you skip the vase empowerment and go straight to the secret or wisdom levels, it is incorrect and does not follow the Dharma. Similarly, if you haven't gone through the earlier stages of empowerment, then the necessary cause for the subsequent results simply isn't there. So it's crucial to first complete all the necessary causes for the earlier stages. If they are not, the empowerment isn't truly received. This is the essence of the immediately preceding condition. When indwelling wisdom actually manifests by the power of these six, the gathering of the two root causes and four contributing circumstances. By relying on these six causes and conditions, an inconceivable power of interdependence is created. And what will the result be? It's certain that your naturally indwelling wisdom will manifest. The whole point of empowerment is to use these specific conditions to reveal this natural wisdom. This is also the inconceivable power of the exaltation of the nature of phenomena and undeniable interdependent condition phenomena, the blessings of the Tathagatas, and the power of mantra and mudra possessing the distinctive feature of the skillful means of mantra's conduct. Consequently, like the power of a wish-fulfilling jewel or a potent medicine, the transference of power is undeniable. So Mifam Rinpoche describes three types of inconceivable power here. The first is what we just mentioned. By completing all causes and contributing circumstances, naturally indwelling wisdom is revealed. But what does that really imply? It means there are three types of inconceivable power. The first is the power of the exaltation of the nature of phenomena. Every single sentient being is inherently endowed with the Tathagata within their mind stream, just as sesame oil pervades every sesame seed. Our body, speech, and mind are all endowed with this wisdom of great bliss, the Tathagata. This is the nature of phenomena. Then there is the interdependence of the phenomena. This refers to the circumstances of the guru and the disciple that we discussed, along with the ritual substances. The power of these interdependent conditions is inconceivable. So this is the first power, the exaltation of the nature of phenomena and undeniable interdependent conditioned phenomena. Second, the blessing of the Tathagatas is also inconceivable. In these empowerments, the lineage masters from Samantabhadra and Buddha Shakyamuni down to the current Vajra gurus are inseparable from the Tathagatas. They all possess inconceivable power. This is the second type of the inconceivable power. Third, the secret mantra includes specific mudras, profound views, and various skillful means of mantra's conduct. The mantras, mudras, ritual objects, and liturgies of the secret mantra all carry an inconceivable capacity. Everything about these practices is extraordinary. When all these inconceivable causes and conditions gather together, our mind streams will definitely be transformed. Actually, it would be best if those practicing secret mantra could take these principles to heart and even memorize them. By doing so, your faith will not easily waver as you go about your life. You'll see that a true empowerment isn't just about having some ritual water poured over your head. If it were only about the water, well, even a young herder waters his yaks every day. He might give them salt and water, but that is something entirely different. If it were just about holding up a crystal ball, anyone could do it. Even someone who has never taken refuge could hold it up and say, "Look, everyone, here's a crystal ball. See how transparent it is inside and out? Just have a look." If it were that simple, anyone would be capable, but it is not like that at all. The profound meaning behind it is unique. So this analogy is key. Think of it like the unique properties of a wish-fulfilling jewel or a specific medicine. Take medicine, for example. When a highly skilled doctor prescribes it, it might look like just a few plants ground into a powder. You might think, I can just grind up some plants and give them to people too, but that is not the same. The doctor holds a specific lineage and works with the subtle laws of dependent origination. Because of that power, the medicine given by the doctor can actually cure diseases. Even if things look the same on the surface, what you give might have no healing effect at all. It is like a wish-fulfilling jewel. When people pray to it, it can grant everything. However, an ordinary jewel that merely looks like it possesses no such function. This is how many people today view the blessings and power of the Dharma. I often use medicine as an analogy because it really is the most accurate way to explain it. Many people today refuse to acknowledge the unique conduct and blessings found within the secret mantra and the Buddha's teachings. They simply reject them. For instance, when a sacred scripture is placed on someone's head as a blessing, a doubter might ask, what's the point of that? They think it is no different from placing any other object on one's head. But it is entirely different. Consider how substances work in the secular world. Those who have studied chemistry, physics, and especially medicine understand that when ordinary external substances are combined in just the right way, they can manifest various specific capabilities. How much more so when the primordial wisdom of our own minds and external objects are joined together, they produce an even more supreme power. Furthermore, this is a power that one can personally experience during practice. The power you feel when receiving an empowerment is not just from drinking a bit of water or coming into contact with the ritual object. The nature of that power is completely unique. Many of you here have wisdom, so you should understand this principle. It states in the root tantra of Vajra, the truth of the nature of phenomena, the blessings of secret mantra, the power of the Buddha, all of these are inconceivable. The power of truth of the nature of phenomena is inconceivable. The blessing of the secret mantras is also inconceivable. And the power and blessing of the Buddhas are inconceivable as well. When these inconceivable causes and conditions gather, an inconceivable result will naturally manifest. Many practitioners, including many of you present here, knew nothing about the secret mantra at first. Back then, you might have seen it as something strange or mysterious. Thinking that practitioners were a bit out there or even a little crazy, you might have wondered, what's with all this intense passion? Is it really that simple? Many people start with that mindset. But once they truly enter the Vajrayana and understand the inconceivable blessings within it, the blessings of the mantras, the rituals, the statues, and the lineage, then they realize, wow, this simply cannot be replaced by ordinary secular literature or mundane objects. They cannot even be compared. There is a profound and subtle depth here. Not only is my own conceptual mind incapable, but even a very high level of wisdom would find it difficult to measure such profundity. At that point, your faith in the secret mantra becomes irreversible. It's no longer just superficial. Otherwise, I worry that although there are so many people studying Buddhism today, and even more pursuing the secret mantra, Tibetan Buddhism has become quite a trend lately, you know? In the West, they use the term Tibetan drifters. It refers to the many people who have drifted to the Tibetan regions. But many of these Tibetan drifters quickly drift back to the Han regions. As a result, many Tibetan lamas have now become Han drifters. That's subtle. Actually, you could say I'm one of those Han drifters myself. People often use the term Beijing drifters as well, right? Now, I have here a copy of the overview of the Guhyagarbha Tantra. I'll have the academic department and our other Dharma volunteers discuss how to handle this. Khenpo Namdrol and others from the Namdroling monastery in India previously taught a text called The Key to the Precious Treasury, an overview of the Guhyagarbha Tantra. This was composed by Dzogchen Rinpoche, and I've taught this text in Tibetan once or twice here at Larongar. There is also a translation by someone named Pema Sonam. I checked it the other day, and while it might not be quite as accessible as my own translations, the wording and meaning should be accurate. If it's convenient, we might provide it as reference material later on. I'm afraid I might forget, so Khenpo Yonjao, please find a way to get this printed. A simple version with both Tibetan and Chinese would be good. There is no need to re-edit it, just print it directly. Both languages side by side. Yes, just scan and print it. I will handle the copyright issue. I don't think there was a copyright notice in it anyway. Khenpo Namdrol sent it to me last year. It should be fine to print it just as it is, so we can distribute it to the students attending this class. The sections on empowerment and mandalas in the Tibetan text are quite difficult to grasp, but they are very profound. It is truly excellent, a key to opening the precious treasury. So I will hand the key over to you, and you can open it yourselves, since I might not have the time to teach it. Well, even if I did have time, I did consider it before, but if I were to translate it myself, given my current heavy workload, that would be quite a challenge. But you can study it yourself. Those with faith will find their own way, right? What was I talking about just now? The inconceivable. I really hope you will all contemplate these points deeply. If you just skim over the words as if you were reading a novel, I'm afraid you won't grasp the true meaning of the Guhyagarbha Tantra. But if you read it again and again, eventually you'll think, oh, so this is the real meaning behind empowerment. The meaning of the mandala is actually this. At that point, your faith will become unshakable and very firm. Right now, we need firm faith instead of drifting aimlessly. Therefore, by the power of empowerment, different levels of understanding, experience, and realization of the meaning of the four Vajras will arise. Because through empowerment, each person's faith and capacity differ. Some have already gained an understanding of the nature of phenomena on the path of accumulation. Others have reached a level of experiencing the nature equivalent to the path of preparation. And some have attained realizations at the level of the first Bhumi Bodhisattva or beyond. Relying on empowerment allows these different levels of understanding of the meaning of the four Vajras to arise. For some, after the empowerment, they gain a conceptual understanding of the nature of phenomena without having fully experienced it. Others have an actual experience which typically corresponds to the path of preparation. This is perhaps like the various states of awakening described in Zen Buddhism, and still others gain full realization. If one perseveres accordingly in this path of gradual progression, then the practitioner attains the state of Vajradhara during his short lifetime in these degenerate times. If we consistently progress step by step, moving forward in the proper sequence, and if we are extremely diligent in a way that accords with the Dharma, then in a short period, much like the life of Jetsun Milarepa, one can attain the state of a Vajra holder within a single brief lifetime. Milarepa once said, "I am an ordinary person, yet from the time I began practicing until now, it is not unreasonable for you to call me a Vajra holder." Due to the powerful blessings of the secret mantra, one can indeed achieve such a result within one short lifetime. It is taught that even if one does not deliberately strive on the path in this life, as long as samaya is unimpaired, it will not be long before Buddhahood will occur. Some people have already received Vajrayana empowerments and have received the corresponding instructions and pith teachings. Yet, for various reasons, they might not deliberately strive on the path in this life. As long as you have not broken Samaya, then in a very short time, you will eventually become a Buddha in the near future. That is why the secret mantra has specific methods like liberation through hearing or liberation through wearing. These are all exceptionally sublime and skillful means. Even if you haven't been very diligent in your practice or haven't achieved much in this life, if you have received many empowerments and instructions on the secret mantra, it actually provides immense benefit for your eventual accomplishment. The path of mantra that brings about Buddhahood, both swiftly and easily, depends upon bringing the mind to maturity through empowerment, thus in a very short time. Just as in Zen Buddhism, where they speak of recognizing the nature of mind and becoming a Buddha in this life, the secret mantra also has this potential to recognize one's nature and achieve Buddhahood within this very lifetime. The ability to achieve results so rapidly is actually based on Vajrayana empowerment and nothing else. On the path of sutra, resultant wisdom is gained only after amassing great waves of the two accumulations for countless kalpas, whereas this wisdom can be directly engaged in mantra even by a mere beginner through the force of empowerment. In the Sutrayana path, it usually takes one great Asankhya eon to achieve initial results. Specifically, it takes one full Asankhya eon to complete the paths of accumulation and preparation. This is then followed by the path of seeing and finally the path of meditation. In total, it requires 3 great Asankhya eons of diligent practice. Throughout these 2 or 3 Asankhya eons, one must accumulate vast amounts of merit and wisdom before finally being able to manifest the resultant state of Buddhahood. In the secret mantra, however, even as a beginner, relying on the Guru's pith instructions and the extraordinary blessing power of the secret mantra, one is effectively propelled into the path. This allows you to cut through conceptual thoughts right then and there. Nowadays, many people are eager to learn the secret mantra, but hesitate to study the 5 great treatises. Some people here might slip away when the 5 great treatises are being taught, but as soon as the secret mantra is taught, they suddenly pop up again. Perhaps these people don't want to go through the Sutrayana. They may consider themselves practitioners of the highest faculties, even smarter than Jetsun Milarepa, and so they only pop up for the deep teachings. However, I truly encourage you to study the Sutrayana well as well. While the secret mantra certainly has inconceivable blessings, the key is whether we have such a great degree of faith. If faith in the secret mantra and pure samayas are not present, then even if you show up frequently, it's hard to say if you will truly benefit. Regardless, the reality of the secret mantra is indeed like this. Even for an ordinary person, it can effectively and immediately sever their conceptual thoughts and help them recognize afflictions as bodhi. Every conceptual thought is instantly transformed into luminous awareness on the spot. This direct entry into the sacred path is also the power of empowerment. Without empowerment, you wouldn't even have the qualification to begin studying the secret mantra. So empowerment is extremely important. In the Root Tantra, it states, that which is simultaneously born and not expressed by others cannot be discovered anywhere. But by meeting the Guru who explains the methods, along with accumulating one's own merit, it can be known. This was said by Saraha. He said that to achieve awakening, co-emergent wisdom or sahaja jnana is not obtained through the explanations of the Sutrayana. The true meaning of co-emergent wisdom cannot be found anywhere else. In the Sutrayana or other traditions, the essence of co-emergent primordial wisdom simply cannot be attained. It can only be achieved by relying on the skillful means and the Guru of the secret mantra. The Guru's skillful guidance is indispensable. At the same time, encountering such a secret mantra teaching is actually a result of one's own merit. Without merit, you wouldn't encounter the Guru or the secret mantra at all. When these two conditions gather, realizations that could not be achieved over many lifetimes in the Sutrayana or other traditions will be awakened instantly through the power of the Guru's lineage blessing combined with your own uncommon faith. This does happen. If empowerment is not received, since it is not even acceptable to open the scriptures of the profound secret tantras and listen to them, there is no need to mention practice and the rest. So empowerment is very important. If you haven't received the empowerment for a specific text, you are not allowed to read it, nor are you allowed to listen to it being taught. You cannot even listen to or read the text. Some people ask if they can listen to this or that, but if you haven't received empowerment, the Guru is not qualified to grant permission. because empowerment is essentially the entrance. If you don't even have your entrance pass, then merely wishing to enter will get you nowhere. Nowadays, many people have not received empowerment or practiced the preliminaries, yet they directly print copies of many secret texts and try desperately to read them. But even if you read them, since you haven't obtained the guru's permission and the formal empowerment, it is indeed impossible to receive the realization within your mind stream. Some people say, it's fine, I'll take a shortcut. I'll just buy a text for myself and study it with all my might. But doing this might only increase your negative karma. It is meaningless.
Recall when Jetson Milarepa went to seek Dharma from Ngokpa.
At that time, Marpa had not given his permission. Yet Milarepa went there anyway, and Ngokpa also tried his best to teach him the most profound dharmas. Milarepa thought, all gurus are the same. I should be able to attain realization through this guru as well. In the end, not a single sign of accomplishment appeared. Only later did he realize it was because Marpa had not authorized it. In fact, if the guru's enlightened intent is not unlocked, it is generally very difficult to attain realization. Even with a truly authentic guru, some people today, perhaps driven by their own afflictions, initially rely on a qualified guru, but later develop wrong views. When they leave, they don't even inform the guru. They just walk away as they please, thinking another guru might be better for them. But what is the result? Not only do they fail to grasp the true meaning of the Dharma from the new guru, but they even encounter various obstacles. This is a very common phenomenon. This is also very clear when looking back at history. His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche also gave a great deal of instruction on this matter. Therefore, in this text, realization is said to rely solely on the guru's skillful methods and the power of one's own merit. If you have not received empowerment, simply going through the texts will yield nothing. Nowadays, many restricted texts have been leaked, including those I translated previously, such as Lama Yangtig, pointing out instructions to the mind nature, and many other volumes. Certain merchants in particular sell them deliberately. Although we strictly forbid their sale on the internet, they continue to photocopy and distribute them privately. In reality, the enlightened intent remains locked. Even if you have read the text, the true secret key likely remains with the lineage gurus. It is not necessarily something you can understand just by reading casually. This is something many of you should be able to sense as well. In the root Tantra, it states, not pleasing the Vajra master and not receiving all empowerments, all one's efforts applied toward listening and so forth, will not only be destructive, there will be no result. If you haven't relied upon the guru through the 3 ways of pleasing and haven't received an authentic and proper empowerment, yet you take it upon yourself to listen, to read, or to practice on your own, then in that case, not only will you fail to attain any realization, you could also cause serious spiritual harm to your own path. This is very common today, so it's something we really need to be careful about. Let's look at certain texts. If you haven't received the specific empowerment and are not permitted to read it, then do not read it. If you have only received the Guhyagarbha Tantra empowerment, then you should only read materials related to the Guhyagarbha Tantra. If you have received Dzogchen empowerment, then you can read the Dzogchen texts. Otherwise, reading them casually is not like reading other types of books. It's essential that everyone stays mindful of this. You should also keep your own texts and the transmissions you've received to yourself. There's no need to feel like you have to let others copy them. For someone who has never received empowerment or relied upon a guru to say, I have a text, do you want to photocopy it? This is so supreme, it's very sublime. Think about it. Normally the text is not permitted. But I'm quite open-minded and inclusive. So if you want to copy it, that's fine too. You can just give it away to anyone as a casual connection. In fact, the more the secret mantra is kept secret, the more blessing it has. The more it's kept secret, the more benefits you will receive. The truth is, for us as practitioners, when we maintain this sacred secrecy, the blessing and power we receive from the Dharma are so much greater. If you feel that it's all public and it doesn't matter, then instead its blessing will be lost. Therefore, you must pay attention to this. In the vital essence of Mahamudra, it states, without empowerment, there will be no siddhi, just like there can be no butter from squeezing sand. Whoever fails to confer empowerment but teaches tantric texts out of pride will fall at the moment of their death, along with their disciples, into hell, even if common siddhi has been achieved. If you haven't received empowerment, then in reality, attaining the ultimate siddhi, the supreme accomplishment, is simply impossible. It's just like trying to squeeze oil out of a handful of sand. It is absolutely impossible. If someone is very arrogant and has not received empowerment, yet begins to explain and interpret the sutras and profound tantras based on their own conceptual mind, explaining works like the Gathering of Intentions Tantra or the Samdhinirmocana Sutra. If that is the case, then at the very moment of death for both the guru and the disciple, they might have gained some temporary common siddhis, the mundane accomplishments, but they will never reach the ultimate siddhi of liberation. Instead, they will fall into hell, a most serious and sobering consequence. Therefore, without first receiving empowerment, browsing secret texts and trying to practice on your own is an incredibly steep and risky path. It is best to have true authorization from the lineage gurus, and these gurus should specifically be lineage masters regarding the secret mantra. For example, if a king grants you any kind of special authority or privilege, he can only do so because he holds that power himself. But someone with no standing, like a beggar or a servant, simply doesn't have that power. In the teachings of the primordial Buddha Samantabhadra, authentic Vajra masters are the ones with the qualification to protect the Dharma and to grant permission. Nowadays, many people say, oh, just read it if you want to. It's as if everyone has become a master of the secret mantra, but it wasn't like this in ancient times. The true masters of the secret mantra, the lineage holders of the teachings, the Vajra masters, the gurus, they are the ones qualified to permit or forbid and to transmit the teachings. That is why when His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche was alive, everyone placed great importance on his authorization. His Holiness also placed immense importance on every empowerment he bestowed upon us. If empowerment is received, it will be just the opposite, since proper authorization has been granted. One can properly enter the path of secret mantra and accomplish all siddhis. Once you've received a Vajrayana empowerment, it's as if you've been granted a formal key, an authorization. From that point on, you're welcome to enter the most sublime inner halls of the secret mantra. You can read the texts and listen to the teachings as you wish. Even for those who possess certain abilities and realizations, it is also permissible to give empowerments and transmissions to others. Sometimes we feel that in terms of spreading the secret mantra in Han regions, for those whose motivations are pure, those not seeking the 8 worldly concerns, there is a real need among the Han Chinese people to have a few qualified individuals who truly have faith in the secret mantra and the authority to give empowerments. That would be very beneficial. In places like Hong Kong and Taiwan, His Holiness Dudjom Rinpoche specifically requested certain lay people and monastics to bestow empowerments. But whether they actually do so and give those empowerments, I can't say for certain. However, in photographs of many Dharma assemblies, I've seen many of Dudjom Rinpoche's disciples wearing lotus hats, giving empowerments all day long with hundreds of disciples gathered before them. In cases like that, since we are dealing with such a profound Dharma, a proper lineage is still absolutely essential. Because of this, I wouldn't go as far as to say that these situations are entirely, traditional. However, many people who do not possess the qualifications to give empowerment frequently come forward saying, I'll give the empowerment, do you want me to? While those who are truly qualified tend to be more humble and reserved, saying, I am not qualified. This seems to be an inevitable pattern. So sometimes it's hard to say. It is a difficult choice. Regardless, in the future, I think for these Vajrayana empowerments, one must truly complete the requirements of the empowerment, including the rituals. For example, if it is an empowerment of Guru Rinpoche, then at the very least, one must have completed his mantra recitations and many other requirements. And remember, the purpose of giving empowerment should never be for oneself, but entirely for the benefit of the Dharma and all sentient beings. In this regard, if we are too restrictive or overly cautious, there might be a danger of a gap forming in the secret mantra lineage. Thus, while we move forward, receiving the proper empowerment and lineage ourselves remains the vital first step. Therefore, it is indispensable to receive an authentic empowerment from a teacher possessing lineage blessings. Possessing the blessings of the successive lineage, meaning the guru has their own lineage passed down in proper sequence. Receiving empowerment from such a guru with these blessings is very important. Originally, I was considering organizing a Guyagarpa Tantra empowerment. A while ago, I intended to request Tulku Tenzin to see if he could bestow it on those here who have a secret mantra authorization pass. But I've been very busy. When the time comes, if it's convenient, you may look into the arrangements. I don't have the time to organize this personally right now. However, if you do not go as individuals. It's better be done as a collective group. Of course, doing this over the internet may not be permitted or convenient, as the ritual requires many specific sacred implements. If the Tulku is in good health, then I think within the academy, Tulku Tenzin is one of the lineage disciples of His Holiness who is exceptionally proficient in the secret mantra. Whether he possesses the most profound levels of samadhi or realization, I wouldn't claim to know for certain, as I don't have clairvoyance. However, based on every observation, he is clearly a master of great cultivation and realization. Therefore, normally, after an empowerment, the samayas must also be explained. In the meantime, those of you who are the Academy's administrators this year, representing the Vajra Mara conquering continent, should find an appropriate opportunity to make this formal request, not as individuals. If people approach him in small groups of 2 or 3, it only causes trouble for the gurus. We must all truly cherish the time of these great masters. Do not constantly disturb them and waste their time with small personal matters. If you do, the fault might be very great. After all, in just 5 minutes, they can accomplish so much to liberate sentient beings. I've heard of individuals who, when a tulku or guru is being particularly compassionate and kind, insist on staying there and chatting for a long time. This is a waste of their time. Generally, an ordinary person might only care about getting through the day. Chatting is fine, sunbathing is fine, anything goes. But for many holy beings and great masters, they dedicate all their time to cultivation, realization, and benefiting sentient beings. So do not go for personal reasons. If you go representing a group, you should first discuss it among yourselves, considering their schedule, their health, and whether all conditions are right. But I hope that participants must hold the secret mantra authorization pass. If other circumstances arise later, we'll see. Otherwise, for one thing, it's not appropriate for there to be too many people. Furthermore, I cannot guarantee other people's preliminary practices or their right view of the secret mantra. For this session, we have conducted very strict evaluations in every class regarding their views and understanding of the secret mantra. Therefore, when considering the health and well-being of the gurus, at the very least, those of us here have already been filtered as suitable vessels. This is very important. If the vessels are not filtered, then in this degenerate age, giving empowerment and teachings in the presence of those who have broken samayas could potentially affect the health and lifespan of even the Vajra master. If there is time, it might be convenient during the National Day period. Those of you in charge this year and the Dharma teachers should hold a meeting to discuss this. Then make the request when it's convenient. If the tulku is not available, then so be it, because this is not for us to decide. There are many empowerments and secret mantra teachings. We can create an auspicious connection, but ultimately the power to permit or not permit lies with the Vajra master himself. So that is what I mean. You all should see. I wouldn't dare personally disturb him. I spoke with the tulku last year as well. In fact, many of the senior lineage disciples of His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche, like Khenpo Sodargye, do not give empowerments. I even said to him the other day, you really should bestow empowerments and transmit the secret mantra. But as for transmitting the secret mantra, last year when he was in the Han regions, he did transmit some. He gave a little to a small number of people. However, every guru has their own different methods and approaches. Regarding the transmissions of the secret mantra, within this section, Mipham Rinpoche also stated that from a guru who possesses the blessings of the successive lineage, one should receive authentic empowerment. This is indispensable. As for our current study of the Guhyagarbha Tantra, if you obtain the 18 types of empowerments described in the Guhyagarbha Tantra that we discussed yesterday, which are the rituals that everyone has become quite familiar with recently, you must visualize the 5 Tathagata Buddhas with the use of each ritual object. Each of these methods is a very profound and skillful means from which you will gain immeasurable benefits and merit. As the Root Tantra says, from that time onward, one is an heir of the victors, and the lower realms will cease to exist. One will have longevity and well-being, and the freedom of the higher realms will await one. The Tantras state that after empowerment, one becomes an heir of the Buddhas. Just like receiving the Bodhisattva vows, one becomes a Buddha's heir. Furthermore, after receiving empowerment, if the samayas are not broken, one will never again fall into the lower realms. One will also have longevity and peace of mind. There will be wealth and plenty of money, especially when receiving the yellow Jambala empowerment. I should learn to bestow the yellow Jambala empowerment in the future. Wasn't there a story about a guru who went to solicit alms? He wanted to give others the yellow Jambala empowerment, and then someone said, if this guru has the ability to give the yellow Jambala empowerment, why is he out soliciting alms himself? He told others, after you receive this yellow Jambala blessing, you will become wealthy. It will be very good for you. Someone asked, didn't he come here to beg? If he's here to beg, how can he enable us to get rich when he can't even make himself rich? In this world today, receiving an empowerment indeed brings immense merit. One can find happiness, abundance, and perfection, becoming a lord of the higher realms and of liberation and so on. Similarly, it is also taught in the Tantras that simply seeing the empowerment mandala will bring immeasurable benefit. While an actual empowerment in a secret mantra mandala certainly has great merit, even without the specific qualifications for it, simply seeing the mandala will bring immeasurable benefit. Our academy has recently built a Guhyagarbha mandala. Just for the mandala itself, even if you haven't formally entered the secret mantra path, you are welcome to view it or circumambulate it, as these are all permitted. I recall in the Merits of the Mandala, written by Tulku Tenzin, there were several scriptural citations, for example, perhaps from the Stainless Confession Tantra, as it is described there. Paying homage to the peaceful and wrathful deities can clear away even the 5 crimes of immediate retribution. And there are other citations stating that merely seeing a mandala can lead to attainment within 7 lifetimes. So we have many such instances of liberation through seeing. Those who do not believe in Buddhism might not necessarily accept this, but whether they accept it or not is their own business. They might have many things they don't accept. What does this refer to? Regarding the secret mantra, if you truly enter the mandala and receive an authentic empowerment, the merit is immense and goes without saying. Even just seeing the mandala prepared for the ritual or its external structure, the very shape of these mandalas, if you go to see it, circumambulate it, pay homage or make offerings, this merit is also inconceivable. So while we are here in the human realm, if we choose not to cultivate merit, that is one thing. But if we do wish to create merit, there are many skillful circumstances available to us. In short, empowerment is the only door through which to initially enter the Vajrayana path. Just as Sutrayana begins with refuge and Mahayana begins with bodhicitta, the secret mantra has its own introductory ritual. To truly enter the secret mantra, you must receive empowerment. Before receiving empowerment, one is still an outsider, since this is the special method that allows one to meditate on the paths and achieve the results. With empowerment, one is permitted to practice and may investigate what the view is and what the samadhi is like, including the practices of various deities, to attain the sublime fruit. Therefore, by relying on it, the view of mantra will arise in the stream of mind. To realize the inseparability of purity and evenness, one must first have an empowerment. After empowerment, the Guru explains the secret mantra view to you, and then you will be able to comprehend it. This also requires empowerment. Meditation will be in harmony with the view. Once the view is established, one must practice. This practice also requires it. With empowerment, you can then engage in the actual practice. Through conduct, momentum will be gained. The capacity for the various conducts of the secret mantra also comes through empowerment. Accomplishment, offerings, enlightened activity, mantra, and mudra will all become meaningful. Once you have received empowerment, you can then make each of these, whether performing activities, reciting mantras, or forming mudras, truly meaningful. Samaya will be received. With empowerment, one can then uphold the samayas. If there is no empowerment, one cannot even begin to know how to uphold the samayas. This is why empowerment is really the source of everything, since, similar to a king who establishes the levels of succession, every aspect of the path relies upon empowerment. Empowerment is the source of all 10 tantric topics mentioned earlier. With it, you can then attain the true fruit. Just as a king holds supreme power and everyone depends on him, whether he grants permission or not, everything relies on him. It is the same with empowerment. Once you have it, everything becomes possible. You can act with total spiritual freedom within the secret mantra. If you have not received empowerment, you aren't allowed to touch, look at, or practice anything. That's how it is. The above explains the relationship between empowerment and the other 10 tantric topics. Next, we discuss the ultimate empowerment of great perfection, where there is nothing to confer or receive. Ultimately, there is nothing to confer or receive. It probably says no conferring or receiving. I'll check the Tibetan text later. In this kind of empowerment that realizes the ultimate, in the end, there is nothing to confer and nothing to receive. Both conferring and receiving vanish. When the meaning of the state of perfection, the primordial great Dharmakaya, is realized, the empowerment of the strength of self-awareness is received. This can also be called the empowerment of self-awareness. This is the genuine kind, like the Manjushri Great Perfection empowerment from His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche. It is the ultimate and highest empowerment of great perfection. According to Mahasandhi, this is the consummate empowerment as stated in the Root Tantra. When non-duality is realized, that is the great mudra. Non-dual Mahamudra is a verse from the Guhyagarbha Tantra. In fact, it means that conferring the empowerment and receiving it are non-dual. This is Mahamudra, great perfection, the great creative power. This is exactly what they are. At the most ultimate level, nothing exists and nothing is obtained. Because if you truly have something to obtain, as was mentioned yesterday in the Ornament of Clear Realization, even attachment to Buddha and such is a subtle conceptualization. This phrase is very important, and you should keep it in mind. If you find it difficult to memorize long scriptural citations, you are not alone. Some of our Tibetan masters who are not good at long citations will frequently say, even attachment to Buddha and such is a subtle conceptualization. Often during debates, when they get stuck, they just grab this line as their secret weapon. Even attachment to Buddha is subtle, you know? So at the ultimate stage, within the view of great perfection, even attachment to Buddha is inappropriate. Within the great perfection view, it goes without saying. The principle of great perfection concludes all empowerments. It is also explained this way in the Tantras. This completes the explanation on how, through empowerment, wisdom is rekindled in the mind stream by that which possesses supreme influence, the paramita of power empowerment. We have finished the discussion on empowerment. After empowerment, after October, we will begin discussing the secret mantra samayas. After that, our study will be quite complete in every respect.
Bandara Badma Sodargye Bandara Badma Sodargye Bandara Badma Sodargye